Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. Today I have a very special guest, but right before we get into that, one thing I want to do is tell you about Nadu Shave Company. There's a reason our fathers and grandfathers used these single blade safety razors for so long, and there's a reason why a lot of guys are not using these plastic Chinese made pieces of crap that are getting sold to us by companies, completely overpriced companies that absolutely hate you. Nadu is well above that. The days of Big Shave are over. You can absolutely purchase one of these single blade safety razors by going to nadushaveco.com and purchase from a veteran owned, family operated business that actually cares about their customers and wants to provide you with a high quality product. It's a product that I personally use and could not recommend enough. So make sure and go to NADEAUSHAVEco.com and use promo code RISE15 for 15% off your order, and that lets them know that we sent you over there. You will not regret this product. Plus, Christmas is coming up. Perfect time to get this for your man or a friend, or buy a Christmas present for yourself. It's absolutely amazing. Will not regret it. NaduShaveco.com, promo code RISE15 for 15% off. Now, today's guest is Jason Bassler of the Free Thought Project. How you doing, Jason?
Great, my friend. Thanks for having me on. I do appreciate it. I've been following your work since, well, the last time you had me on. I've been definitely appreciating what you're doing. And God, what was that, like 2 years ago now? Was that 2022?
Almost. Yeah, it's been that long.
No kidding.
So, but I wanted to get you on today. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things going on in this world. But one thing I did want to talk about, you had released a book, 3 Ways to Prepare for CBDCs. I would like to get into that because it seems like there's not a whole lot of people talking about this, even though like we're right on the cusp of this being introduced. So I guess first, what is a CBDC?
Sure. Well, yeah, a CBDC is a central bank digital currency. And there's a lot to be concerned about this, guys. You know, in this rapidly evolving digital landscape, traditional forms of currency are kind of undergoing a transformation that could drastically change the fabric of society. So I saw a blind spot in the American consciousness about this specific topic. I didn't feel like enough people were talking about it. And that's what kind of motivated me to write this book. Now, I should probably preface by saying this book is for the beginner, for people who are just kind of starting to hear about the CBDC fervor. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to somebody who's been in the cryptocurrency space for a while or kind of knows a little bit more about digital IDs and CBDCs. And if you are somebody who's familiar with the topic, then it might not necessarily be for you, although there are a lot of solutions in there that would probably be helpful as far as, you know, what we can do to move forward if something like a CBDC is implemented in this country. But yeah, man, right off the bat, you know, a central bank digital currency, it spells, well, the end of privacy. There's a lot of issues at the end of the day when it comes to CBDCs that I've actually made a seven-point list here. There's privacy violations. There's no anonymity. There's, you know, it's programmable spending. There's going to be government surveillance, negative interest rates. We saw during COVID in Canada how the Canadian government froze funds that would be absolutely accessible for the state to do that. And ultimately, where this could lead is to social credit scores. So there's a lot to be concerned about, especially considering the fact that there's already 134 countries across the globe that are either piloting, testing, or have already implemented CBDCs, including major economies like Japan and Russia. Now, these are what, you know, the WEF has been talking about for forever. When it comes to Agenda 2030, like this is at the top of the list. The UN is also on board. So nefarious organizations such as these, it raises a red flag, right? Like this is something that we want to be concerned about, that should be on our radars. And the thing is, they, just like many other types of rollouts, when they try to propose things that are ultimately going to be, violating our rights and reducing our liberties, there's a sales pitch involved. And that sales pitch is that it's going to be convenient and it's going to be inclusive for people who don't necessarily have access to bank accounts. And we're talking about people in developing countries, developing nations, third world countries, where we're already seeing a lot of these already take root. So as I was saying, the CBDC kind of goes hand in hand with the digital ID, the social credit scores, and the 15-minute cities. And already we're starting to see places like California, among other states, piloting digital IDs that are called MDLs, mobile driver's license. And that's paired up with the DMV companion app, of course. But this is what I believe is going to be the beginning of getting us put into these systems through digital IDs. And by doing so, it's something that seems kind of potentially harmless, like a driver's license. It's already kind of setting the waters and acquiescing the American public to sign up for these things for convenience. Just last year, the G20 in New Delhi agreed to plan on eventually imposing digital currencies and digital IDs. So this is something that's happening. And like I said in my book, the train has already left the station. So this isn't something that's speculative. It's already in the works. 134 countries are already working on this. To me, it feels like it's more of a threat than, what people on the left like to point at, Putin and Russia as being a threat, or even right-wing extremists. We were hearing a lot about the national security leaks during last year with both Biden and Trump. To me, the CBDC is more worrisome than all those things. And some might even say that this is the next evolution of war. Now, the Juniper Research Organization recently estimated that the global value of CBDCs will jump from around 100 million today to 213 billion by 2030. And that's actually kind of an older stat as well. That's a stat from when I wrote the book around September of last year. So safe to say there's a lot to be concerned about. In this country, there's been, I think, 3 rounds of different types of testing that's already happened. I know one was Project Hamilton, and the Boston Federal Reserve has been testing retail CBDC since 2020 of last year. And Biden actually even signed an executive order in 2022 requiring government agencies to analyze the pros and cons of creating a central bank digital currency. So again, with stuff, you combine that with the Fed Now dollar that was launched in July of last year, which is basically like an instant payment infrastructure. All this stuff is kind of coalescing into a bigger control grid paradigm, control structure that, to me, it feels worrisome. Let's just put it that way. And of course, I could keep rattling on here, but yeah, is there something else or anything else that you're curious about as far as CBDCs before I just keep rattling on?
So, I mean, I wanted to give a primer because, like I said, a lot of people are not talking about this, and sure. I'm with you. I think this is like way more concerning than almost anything else happening right now. I mean, take your pick of concerning things happening, but it like this literally destroys all liberty.
Yes.
And
yes. Well, yeah, financial liberty, which is connected, intimately
right.
with our liberty.
Yeah. And, you have digital ID, there goes privacy. And without privacy, there is no liberty. And I mean, then we're talking like a Blade Runner future, just like, or Born Identity, some just like really terrible dystopian future that, some former dictators of the 19th century could only dream of.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
This is like Stalin's wet dream, like, and it's so terrifying. One way that I'm predicting that it's most likely going to be sold to us is that it's going to be the new cool thing. It's going to be sold through like Apple, probably at first. Ooh, look, contactless payment, no cash, no card. You just wave your hand over this machine, and then that's it. That's all you got to do. And one thing I do want to ask though is, what do you believe is the cause of the reason why people aren't talking about this? Like, is it just because, you know, there is some like negative connotation with crypto, you know, there's like the whole crypto bro thing. So are like people not paying attention to it because they think that's what it is? Or is there like a concerted effort to keep people from this, or kind of all of it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's also the acronym itself doesn't really give a lot of an explanation. So if you did happen to see a headline mentioning CBDC, you might not necessarily know what that is. But I'll gently push back a little bit here, Jacob, because I do think there is some awareness, and that kind of was surrounding the years of COVID and when the right was starting to kind of wake up to a lot of this stuff. And there was actually quite a lot of attention that the right put on these things like digital IDs and CBDCs. And so I think there is a segment of the population that is aware of it, but your average general normie, it certainly is not. But, you know, we've seen just within the past couple of years that, you know, there's been a war on cash, and the US is moving, you know, more and more every day towards a cashless society. I think only 18% of all US payments in 2022 were made in cash, and that was down 31% from 2016. So this kind of highlights that if Western governments do adopt digital currencies, it is game over. Now, with that being said, I kind of also have this concern, and it's not just my concern, it's shared by other colleagues in this space and alternative media, that because there already is a negative connotation associated with the CBDC, that they will try to roll it out in a different type of facade, a different type of veneer, a different type of mask. And what people like Whitney Webb are suggesting is that this will be something that's rolled into potentially a stable coin. And that is even more ominous because there are a lot of people who are very pro crypto right now, and they believe that something like a stable coin is necessary, which, you know, I think there is an argument to be made there. But if it's going to be tied into some type of private public partnership, then like we saw with during the COVID years and the way that they rolled these things out, whether it be the mandates, a lot of times it was the public, or excuse me, the private employers who were kind of you know, stressing that you had to get the vaccine, or it could be just the collusion through subsidizing the vaccines themselves through government, and not necessarily having the state being, you know, the one who's creating them and administering them. It's kind of the same kind of issue here, where we even saw, you know, surrounding the climate change, that institutions and governments collude to bypass constitutional limitations, pushing for things such as like ESG. You know, firms like BlackRock, Vanguard, Amazon, you know, they're all advocating for this ESG, which I'm sure most of your audience is familiar with that, but if they're not familiar with it, kind of similar to like a DEI. It's ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance, which is like a criteria that corporations are basically rolling out to say, you know, that if you want our money, you have to show us your ESG score. Like if some type of capital firm or something like that, somebody who has some money, you know, if you're going to want us to lend you some money, we're going to need to see your ESG score. How many women do you have on your board? How many minorities? So in strange ways, it's kind of like a trickle down process that brings things in through the back door. And it's just another step towards fascism, corporate capture, revolving door with industry, just more cronyism, corporatism, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my concern here, is that I did write this book a year ago. I think I mentioned that already, September 2023, and the landscape's already changed since then. Now the book, right, like I said, does have solutions, but you know, things are moving fast in this realm, and so there is speculation that it could be packaged under a stable coin, and that would be even more ominous.
Right. You know, you had mentioned some of these private equity firms, or the like asset management firms, and ESG scores, which is also another thing that seems to be gaining more attention, but I still don't think a large majority of people understand like what it is. I actually have this really handy I guess, graph that shows some of these asset managements, BlackRock, Fidelity, UBS, State Street, and Vanguard, who are the largest shareholders of most of these companies, organizations. And I mean, that's pretty much everyone. I will provide this on my Telegram, and I'll post this on X for anyone interested. Go just look at it. But I mean, this is showing everyone, and these companies or these asset management firms can basically tell any of these companies, do this or else your ESG score will drop, which is incredibly concerning. And then all it takes is them just saying you have to adopt this, and that's that. And one thing I think that kind of gets lost in a lot of these conversations is, as soon as these digital IDs or CBDCs or any of these things get launched, as soon as that happens, it's game over. There is no going back. Like, once we get rid of cash, this is a permanent decision, which I have an issue with, only because there's no informed consent. Sure. I mean, if people understood what they were agreeing to, I guess that would be a little bit different. But I mean, I got called to actually explain to my state treasurer, for the state of Utah, and taught him of the potential abuses that could take place with just crypto in general, not even a CBDC, but just regular everyday crypto. And these people are voting on policies that are going to affect everyone into the future, and they don't even know what they're voting on. Right. And so the general public doesn't even know. Real quick, I guess, before we dive just a little bit further, do you kind of want to give like a brief overview of why, like fiat currency or the current banking system itself is kind of a problem just in and of itself, and why them having even more control would be bad?
Sure. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was the early 70s that Nixon got rid of the gold standard, right? And that kind of created this gaming atmosphere for the big banksters, for the Federal Reserve and central banks across the world. And at that point, the dollar didn't have to be tied to a specific asset like gold. And that gave the opportunity to create dollar out of thin air. And we've seen that opportunity be abused a trillion-fold. And I don't mean to be flippant here, because we are $36.1 trillion in debt now. But that has basically funded the global endless wars. It's funded the warfare state, and more or less has become, a gamified system for the elites, and unfortunately, at the same time, devaluing the money that we have in our savings account and the money that we use. So there is a lot of issues with the fiat, but I guess that more or less breaks it down. But what the real issue is here is that not only are ones and zeros just part of everyday life in the banking infrastructure right now, they'd be even more so without having any type of physical cash. And as I was mentioning, that physical dollar that we use is still one real solid way that we can continue to push back against CBDCs, because they have to actually account for those dollars that are out in the public sphere. Right now, if the CBDC was to launch tomorrow, all those ones and zeros are at the will of the central banks. They could manipulate them however they want. As I already said, this could spell big trouble as far as just opportunities for financial, if there was some type of, if you were trying to take out a loan or something like that from a bank. So yeah, there are a lot of implications here that unfortunately they would have us even more under their control, which I know sounds a little strange at this point, because it feels like our liberties are already pretty on the deathbed, but at the same time, we still have a little bit of flexibility through the dollar. And I think one other thing that should probably be mentioned here is that this will probably be something that they roll out as a solution for something like a cyber attack, or as you were saying, Jacob, to kind of solve the inflation crisis, or heaven forbid, a dollar crash. And we probably won't have an announcement on a certain day. But if it does happen, we need to be prepared. And that's exactly why, I wrote my book, because now is the time to prepare, guys, not when shit hits the fan, not when there is some type of financial crisis. And one thing I'm not necessarily a Bitcoin maxi or really support of Michael Saylor, but I was listening to an interview with him, and he was saying, like, what's the one asset that you could literally just put into your pocket and leave the country today if you had to? And that's cryptocurrency, right? So cryptocurrencies, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty obvious at this point too, through the Trump administration and the way that they're putting pro-Bitcoin people on his cabinet, it's going to be something that continues to increase in value in the future. And we've already seen it increase, God, I don't even know, 300%. I mean, more than that, in the past 6-7 years. So, yeah, crypto is the way to get out of this. And we could get into more of the solutions as well. It's not the silver bullet, but again, like, this is something that we need to be ahead of the curve of. And that's why I appreciate having the opportunity to talk about it on a show like yours right now.
Right. And this is his book. It will be linked in the episode description, so make sure and go check that out. I'll plug that again right at the end. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's a quick read, 51 pages, I believe. So
yes,
it really just gets to the heart of the issue, gives a little background. And by the way, I loved how you went back and actually talked about like what value is, what money itself is.
had to. Yeah.
Like it's so important. I blame the schools, but people these days are just economically illiterate.
Absolutely.
And in this day and age, ignorance is a choice. And so there are resources out there, but the way that you wrote, you got to the meat and potatoes of everything, and it's absolutely worth every penny. So I highly recommend the book.
Also mention, just really quick, there are 2 bonus interviews along with it. There are links to bonus interviews on my private YouTube channel to both Derek Bros and Gavin Nascimento, both brilliant journalists, indie media journalists, and they also give their take on what's going on. So it's not just like my point of view. Yeah. And I also included a bonus guide to going off grid, which might be a little extreme for some people, including myself. As you could tell, I mean, I'm living in a neighborhood in the suburbs
right here.
But if shit hits the fan and worse comes to worse, that is an option for some people. You can find these intentional communities. You can exit and build, and so I wanted to keep that in there as another alternative option. If you're not necessarily into the crypto sphere, or buying precious metals. Right, and even if it is a bit extreme for somebody, you should at least know a couple of people that are doing this, Absolutely.
We're supposed to be building communities, right? And the way I envision how things are probably going to happen when shit hits the fan is we're going to have like liberty enclaves, like where we're going to have trade routes in between all these different pockets of freedom, while everything else is going to be in the system. There's going to be these like underground railroads, or like a modern version, and it's freedom is going to be hidden almost.
I mean, yeah, that's a great point. That was something else I included in the book as well. I believe it was a little section about the Freedom Cell Network, which is something that our colleague Derek Bros, John Bush have been working on for, 10 years or so. And it's actually a pretty significant amount of people who have already signed up for these freedom cells. And basically the idea is like you put in your address, you figure out who's near you, people you can connect with. And this is so important, guys. Like, we really do need to start doing these things now. Again, like, this is the time to meet the people who grow your food, or even better, start learning how to grow your own food yourself. Start learning how to raise food. Start learning how to barter and trade. I'm certainly somebody who's pro free markets. I'm pro voluntarism, voluntary interactions, transactions. But at the same time, if the dollar does crash, we're going to need to know how to barter and trade, and much more. So. Yeah, definitely check out the book, and I will be putting it on probably the next week or so. I'll be having a Christmas sale. I'll be taking 40% off. So if you guys want to wait just a little bit here, I appreciate you having the link in the description, Jacob. But take a little discount off and save yourself a few bucks.
So I got a couple of quick videos real quick, because I don't know about you, but with some of this stuff, it really helps to visualize it. And
Sure.
I would definitely like to get into the solutions, but I thought these were a couple of really good, just quick snippets of the possibility of what we're talking about and everything. So let's jump into that real quick, if I can get my mouse working. There we go.
Using only my palm at the grocery store without credit cards and cash. Let me show you how it works. You need to sign up on Amazon One kiosk. You insert your credit card and the machine scans both of your palms. Then you enter your mobile number and agrees with terms of use. You're all set. I didn't believe that it worked that simple and decided to check it straight away. I just got something to drink and went to the cashier. And this is the moment. I just paid using my palm. Can you believe? What do you think about this technology?
And that's right. Like it just shows. And I thought it was just so interesting because it's so nonchalant. It's just one of these TikTok videos that you would come across, and anyone who doesn't know any better would just be like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I mean, I'm a tech guy. I love new tech, but it also scares the shit out of me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm right there with you. And the biometric surveillance state is, part of this whole concern with CBDCs. It's all going to be kind of interlinked. And we're already starting to raise the red flag with the Trump administration, because he has brought in so many technocrats. We've seen, people funding him, people in his cabinet, and people just advising them, who are all strong advocates for technocracy, big tech. So this is going to be part of the equation within the next 4 years. We're all, kind of scratching our heads like, is Trump going to actually save liberty? Is he going to save freedom? Well, let's hope so, right? I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm not always great about that, but I'm trying to be optimistic. But at the same time, there are a lot of red flags kind of pointing to this fact that the biometric state is going to be big business. It's going to be all driven through AI and big tech, and these people who are within Trump's cabinet already. They're going to be the ones who are kind of sculpting this, and they're going to be the ones who are kind of administering it to the public as far as like how it's rolled out. So I'm concerned about that aspect as well, and I don't feel like there's been enough people really concerned about that. And I think I made it a meme a couple weeks ago now, where it was like, the right was amazing when it came to researching COVID policies and the mandates and all the fuckery that was going on with that. But then when it comes to the technocratic state that's being ushered in right now, and some are even saying as a Trojan horse, they're completely clueless. They have no idea what's going on. It's like they're just, I don't want to say brain dead, but borderline brain dead when it comes to this specific topic. And, we can get into that too, but I do feel like there's been a lot of mindless fervor supporting Trump and in the Trump camp. And it's
agreed
to our detriment, because we're not actually thinking about the possibility of some of these things. And let me tell you, Jacob, when I do bring it up, when I do raise these concerns on my Twitter, I get a lot of pushback from the Trump supporters.
Right. And it just kind of seems like blinders,
Oh, yeah.
And it's concerning to me, and that's kind of where I guess the left has a legitimate criticism of, the MAGA cult. And it's like, that's fine. You have whatever opinion, but there are things that he and the people surrounding him legitimately need to be criticized for. And if you can't do that or refuse to do that for whatever reason, then that's not a good look. That's
right.
it's really concerning.
Sure.
So.
I mean, especially when these things kind of fly in the face of the same values and morals that you were just a couple of years ago putting on a pedestal, and I don't know, to me, it's just so hypocritical, but I guess there's a difference between ignorance and nescience, right? And nescience is just not having the ability to even know. And I don't know, I feel like some of these people are so in depth and knee deep in the identity politics, the team sport politics, that they don't look outside of those boundaries, and there's just so much to see, especially if you follow people like Whitney Webb and Derek Rose. I mean, these, we're not partisan. We're not playing the two, and I put myself in that camp as well, but we're not playing the two-party game, and I think that's another blind spot for the right, because they assume that if you are speaking about these things, well, you probably voted for Kamala, and you're just hating on Trump or something ridiculous like that.
Right. One other quick video I wanted to show. I thought this was kind of interesting. Of course, take it for what it is, because we live in the era of psyops, but it does seem fairly legitimate to me. So we'll use your own brain power. I have faith in my audience.
The latest in this dystopian outrage that is now all of China, apparently, is I once again cannot buy food. A couple days ago, my uncle and my cousin helped me get a cell phone that is linked to a Chinese bank card so that I could buy anything. But now, apparently, it has been flagged for some reason, and I have to pass facial recognition identity verification, which is insane, because all I want to do is just spend my gift card balance on this debit card.
So creepy.
I have to open my mouth. Oh my god. Terrifying. Oh. And of course, because it was my cousin who set this up for me, I did not pass verification. I guess it's a good thing that the Chinese app is not racist. But now I once again can't buy anything.
Yeah, well, China's going to be, and has been, kind of the testing grounds for a lot of this stuff. And I also mentioned, developing nations, and we've seen some places kind of push back. Thankfully, I think Uganda was one of them, where they actually set the bank on fire and they were doing protesting in the streets. But the digital wallet is kind of the first step to the digital identities and credit scores. And I've seen even creepier stuff than that, where people in China were trying to cross the street, and they just happened to miss the crosswalk sign, and so they were technically jaywalking, and there was cameras on the signs, and they would actually take the picture of the individual and then post and paste their image, their face, on these bulletin boards, these billboards throughout the city, basically shunning and shaming this person. And that seems to be, standard. I've seen the same thing for public services. You have to have a certain credit score for that. So yeah, this is all just utopian. I mean, George Orwell is rolling over in his grave right now, but I do, again, think that there's going to be different ways that they incentivize people in this country to adopt these things, because, it's bad enough, the convenience element of this, and that seems to be a big factor in the American public's consciousness at this point. How can my life be easier? I think you're right. It's going to probably be some type of rollout influence campaign with, different influencers, celebrities, stuff like that. But they might even incentivize adoption through like tax returns, gift cards, discounts for bus fares or stuff like that, And unfortunately, most of us are just barely getting by. We're working long hours. We don't have a lot of savings. And so people will try to look for these ways to kind of save money and kind of make life a little easier. So, yeah, man, that video is definitely concerning, and it could very much be a reality here in the States within the next 10 years, if not sooner.
Right. Now, one question I want to ask, I hate that I have to ask this, but it's just because of the, I'll just blame the CIA for this. But what do you tell people that just blatantly deny this and call it a conspiracy theory?
Well, I mean, the proof's in the pudding, man. It doesn't just Google it. Just Google it. I mean, even the Atlantic Council is boasting about this. And the Atlantic Council, let me just make a quick caveat here, is the same organization that was tied to the Digital Forensic Lab. That was what Facebook and Meta and Twitter hired to do their moderation. And those were the people who instructed Facebook to take us down, the Free Thought Project, 6 years ago now, where we ended up losing 6 million fans. So the Atlantic Council, if you go on their website, they're proudly boasting about this. And yeah, you could just take a look at other countries. Other countries are already rolling this out. It's something that is live, and I believe that there hasn't been a complete dismissal of fiat currency. So the central bank still is in effect with the dollar, or depending on which region you're in or which country you're in. Obviously, it's not going to be the dollar, but there's still there's a coexistence of both. So yeah, man, this is certainly not a conspiracy. In fact, there's even quite a few people within our government. I believe Ron DeSantis created a law for Florida banning CBDCs. RFK Jr. spoke out about them. Thomas Massey, Ted Cruz, even. Yeah, I think the U.S. Congressional Committee actually even passed an anti-CBDC bill a few months back, and the same day, however, a Massachusetts Democrat introduced a bill calling for a digital dollar pilot. So I think there's some mixture within Congress and the Senate as far as which way this is going to go. But I would say that, again, it's not probably going to be under the facade packaged as a CBDC, because there already is enough pushback. And like we've seen from within even the past month or so since Trump was elected, I think that the media, the state, the deep state are starting to become a little bit more aware of the fact that people are aware of these things and they're kind of disgruntled about them. And we saw, several of Trump's cabinet picks actually be reversed just through the public discourse, sharing, enough negative sentiments about it that, it seemed like it had an effect, whether it be, Donald Trump Jr. responding to Dave Smith on Twitter saying, I hear you guys loud and clear. We're going to work on this. We're not going to bring in, who was it, Mike Pompeo, So I'm not so silly to believe that it's something that's just going to go away completely. I think it's just going to be repackaged in a different, pretty convenient and exclusive type of package, and that will be the way that they roll it out to the public.
Right. So I got one more quick video, and then we can get into the solutions to this, because I imagine we could go all day about the issues of what's wrong about all of this. But just on the note of this not being a conspiracy theory, I can't remember this gentleman's name, but he does work for the Bank of International Settlements, which, for anyone who doesn't know, this is like the bank that all the banks bank with. This is like the top of the heap. And this is what they were discussing several years ago.
Analysis on CBDC, in particular for the use of general use, we tend to establish the equivalence with cash, and there is a huge difference there. For example, in cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
So this is just a quick rundown, but he's discussing not only do they not know when people use cash, they don't know who it is, which why would they be concerned with that unless they want to know, which they do. They want to know every transaction you make, and they want to know what currency you're using, when you're using it, where you're using it, why you're using it. I believe we saw that. I'm not sure if it's still in effect. I think I saw something about it recently, the $600 rule with PayPal, Cash App, and any transaction $600 or more will automatically get reported, which whose business is it of anyone's other than mine and who I'm transacting with?
Sure.
This is insane, but they want it down to several pennies. I don't know anything that costs a penny anymore, but if you could spend a single penny, they want to know about it, and they want to know who's sending it, why you're sending it, all of these different things. And then with the CBDC, it's programmable spending, as you mentioned before. So that means if they don't want you to spend that on whatever you're spending it on, they can just simply shut it off, or they can blacklist you and you can't buy food, you can't buy gas, anything they deem that they don't want you to buy.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it's so hypocritical at the same time, right? I mean, meanwhile, the Pentagon's, failing its seventh audit. They're missing trillions of dollars. I mean, just even after, the day before 9/11, there was $2.1 trillion that was unaccounted for. We could just go down the line with this, but yeah, you're right. It all points to something bigger. And I don't think it's necessarily even just the fact that they want to know every dollar that we're spending. They also want their cut, right? And they want their tax revenue. And we're starting to see a little bit more of like a regulation creep into the cryptocurrency world as well. So, but yeah, that clip there is certainly concerning. And there's other, well-known elites within, these different organizations, institutions who have been saying the same thing. The IMF managing director, Bo Lee, said that by programming CBDCs, the money can be precisely targeted for people, what people can own and how the money can be utilized. And, we're talking about some place like China and social credit scores. Well, like, look, if you're not going to spend your money, your CBDC on something that's healthy, they might actually block that transaction, right? And this is just one example of many as to what they can specifically target as far as, what maybe it would be guns and ammo. Maybe that would be something that they could take off the table completely for as, what CBDCs could pay for. And the ironic part about the health thing too is that actually today is, I believe, the 93rd anniversary of the 21st Amendment, which repealed the prohibition law, where I think it was 1933. Prior to that, for about 5 years, the U.S. government was, had this prohibition against alcohol where they were actively poisoning the alcohol to keep people away from it. And they ended up killing 10,000 Americans. So this concept and idea, albeit, my example was way far in the past, but this concept that the government is here to, serve you and protect your safety and look out for your health is just, it's a giant fallacy, So, but yeah, this is all kind of moving in the same direction. And, I was just mentioning a quote from the International Monetary Fund. The UN's on board with this, the Atlantic Council, as I mentioned, the WEF. These are what all the kind of higher up elites are pushing for. And, as I know you've been doing this for long enough, but if this is something that's in their targets, in their sights, and the ball is already kind of, moving and in their court, then they're going to absolutely figure out a way to bring it into fruition.
So there was a quote that you included in your book, and I thought this was absolutely brilliant. It was Buckminster Fuller, and the quote is, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete."
Yeah.
So what are some of the, well, first of all, what are the solutions that you recommend in your book, and what is different now?
Sure. Well, sorry guys, you're gonna have to buy the book. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Again, I don't think anybody who's been in this world for a little while they could probably guess what these solutions are. And the first one, I've already mentioned it several times, is buying, owning, and utilizing cryptocurrency. That right now is one payment platform, one value exchange that is not completely out of their control, but they are slowly but surely kind of hitting the brakes, putting in things like, KYC, also putting in stringent regulations, or even suing cryptocurrency exchanges. But there are workarounds. In the book, to answer your second question there, in the book, when I wrote it in September 2023, I was still in the belief that Bitcoin was going to be the solution to this whole problem. And I still believe that Bitcoin is part of the solution, but I don't believe that that specific coin itself is going to have the utility that is necessary, like privacy, which is so important. Right now with the blockchain, everything's transparent, which, I'm all for transparency, but we also don't want to be transparent when we're moving money around trying to hide it from government.
Right.
So I would suggest that there are other tokens, other coins out there that probably serve the same function as a Bitcoin, although they don't have the same kind of market cap. They're not worth the same right now, but they will be in place. They'll be kind of the stand-in for the dollar if and when the CBDC gets rolled out or there is a dollar crash. Right. So what I would suggest is something like a Monero, something like the Pirate Chain, Pirate Coin. That's one of them. Zono Coin is a new one that's starting to take off right now. In fact, that's something that's Bitcoin Jesus Roger Ver has been promoting, and I think he's involved with as well. And in fact, speaking of Roger Ver, he wrote a book earlier this year called The Hijacking of Bitcoin, which goes over exactly what I was just kind of referring to and alluding to, which is, unfortunately, Bitcoin's been hijacked by big money interests, and they've made the transactions, the costs, and the speed of the transactions incredibly slow, kind of bottlenecking it compared to other cryptocurrencies. And so there's a lot of speculation that was done intentionally. So it can be used more as like a digital gold, kind of gamifying the system, kind of like the stock market, rather than like a peer-to-peer exchange, which Bitcoin was originally intended for. Right. When the white paper came out, in 2009. So unfortunately, we've moved away from more of the peer-to-peer, and it's gotten more into this, Bitcoin maximalist sphere where people are just trying to get it adopted by as many people as possible, including governments, including the federal government, who is even now starting to stockpile it. So I would say own a little Bitcoin, but I wouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Definitely diversify your portfolio, bind some of these altcoins, some of these privacy coins specifically, and that would safeguard you. Also on that same tip, do not leave your cryptocurrency in exchanges, guys. I know it's easy. I know it's convenient. I know it's a little sketchy putting your crypto digitally into a hard wallet or a cold wallet, but I would suggest at all costs, spend $100, $200, whatever it is, for a nice little touchscreen digital cold wallet, and get your Bitcoin off of the exchanges. That minimizes the chance and the ability that they will be somehow seized by the government if the exchange gets taken down, or even hacked by hackers, which hasn't happened in quite a few years. I think the security protocol has gotten a lot better, but it has happened in the past, Mt. Gox being one example of that. So As far as the cryptocurrency route, that's probably one of the strongest things we could do. And not only are we preparing for the future, but we're also putting our money and our value into what we believe is going to be the future, just kind of emboldening and strengthening cryptocurrency as a whole.
Right. This channel is a very big proponent of Monero.
Sure.
Absolutely love the community, love the utility, and I agree. I think Bitcoin definitely has its place, although these days I am of the belief that it's kind of we'll let the system do what they want with Bitcoin, so we can figure out how to fix Monero before they can get to it.
Sure.
So, it, like I said, I think it does serve its purpose, but it's definitely not the answer. And I think you gave the best advice, is not putting all your eggs in one basket, because the bottom of that basket falls out, you ain't got no eggs. And I mean, we need to be using things like gold and silver bullion, of course.
Yes.
Gold backs I am a massive proponent of.
Yes.
And they just launched their new Florida series, which is super beautiful artwork, by the way. Anyone interested, petition to get your state to, for one, recognize bullion as legal tender, which not every state does. And as soon as you do that, I'm sure Goldback would be more than happy to launch a series in your own state. Plus, we'd actually be growing liberty at that point.
Absolutely.
I find it kind of interesting within the liberty community, and I kind of wanted to ask your opinion about this before we wrap up. There seems to be this group, and I'm not like trying to throw shade at them or anything, but they recognize the concern with centralized currencies, fiat currencies, the CBDCs, and all of these things, and so they reject completely the digital side of some of these tools that we can use to fight for freedom.
Sure.
They'll reject a Monero, or they'll reject the possibility of using Bitcoin for anything because of the absolute terrible abuses that can happen with it. What would you say to somebody like this that is just like completely shutting that side out, just because of some of the abuses that can happen?
I think it's worthy of concern. I'm not going to denigrate those people, because at least they're attempting to think critically here. And,
Right.
But it is a viable alternative. It is something that is, something that lives on computers across the globe. So I know one of the concerns is like, well, what if there is a massive EMP or some type of power outage? Okay, that's a worthy concern, but your Bitcoin, your crypto is still going to exist on these exchanges that have backup plans, they have generators. And again, these are all decentralized nodes that are across the entire world. So I understand the concern, but I would say that, if you're really concerned about these things, why don't you just take a look at how much the dollar has been devalued over the past even 5 years, right? Just since COVID happened, let alone before that. Before there was such a thing as the income tax, before there was such a thing as the central banks, I heard this quote from a podcast guest that we had recently. He said that you could go to George Washington's inaugural and buy a blazer, a nice coat, and you could bought the same coat in 1910, just several years before the income tax was implemented, and it would be the same exact price. And that kind of blew my mind, because there was just no inflation back then. So the fact that I get it, there is a worthy concern as far as it being digital, and there are some limitations. There are some concerns when transferring and stuff like that. But every day the system is getting smoothed out. They have there's a lot of wonderful, brilliant minds that are involved in the crypto space that are making it more easy to use. And again, this is something that you could carry in your pocket. If worse comes to worse and you have to leave in minutes, what are you going to try to do? Take your gold bars with you? You know, like you can't. I mean, those are heavy. They're inconvenient. The cryptocurrency is the way that's the future, in my opinion. But even more so, I've come to the realization just lately that Bitcoin continues to increase in value while the dollar continues to decrease in value. I've come to the point where I'm starting to go ahead and use my savings account rather than cash out on my crypto, because it doesn't make any sense. The dollar continues to go down in value, the Bitcoin continues to go up. So, it's kind of a no-brainer. You have to, put in a few dollars to make some money. I know that's can be daunting. Some people feel like, am I too late? Honestly, guys, you're not too late. The Trump cabinet selections, they're looking promising. And even within the past, a month now? Yeah, almost to the day. Bitcoin itself has gone up 20,000, 25,000, So, I mean, it's insane how much this is skyrocketing because there is so much value, there is so much utility wrapped up in Bitcoin itself and cryptocurrencies. And the problem was why it was being so thwarted and hampered was that all the regulations, all the federal regulations from the Biden administration and the quote war on crypto that was starting to happen. Well, Trump, take him for his word or don't, but he's already put some Bitcoin people in there. And if there's one silver lining to Trump being, put in office for the next 4 years, and it looks like he is, and again, taking Trump at his word here, but it does look like he is in support of Bitcoin, and he wants to see the American economy kind of be bolstered by it. So it's not too late. It's going to only continue to increase in value. Of course, it isn't financial advice, so you didn't hear that from me. But be smart, guys. Definitely take advantage of it now before it keeps going up. We just broke 100,000 today, or was it last night? We just broke 100,000 per Bitcoin. I saw it at 103 a little bit earlier, and now it's back down to 101. But I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday. He was like, isn't it just a pyramid scheme? No, it's not. There's a blockchain ledger. You could literally look at all of the Bitcoin. You can see where it's moving, how it's moving. So, definitely now is the time, guys, not when shit hits the fan.
Right. The best time to have bought Bitcoin was yesterday, and the second best time is today.
Yes.
So, and, you definitely want to not buy it when it's at its top, but honestly, I would rather buy it at its top than just hold on to a bunch of US fiat currency. So
I know people who are taking out their 401ks just to buy Bitcoin right now. I mean, it's a gamble, right? But, the way the US dollar is backed by nothing except for the military industrial complex, including the de-dollarization that's going on, BRICS, I mean, all this stuff, it's all pointing to the idea and the fact that the dollar is just going to continue to lose value, and it could be worthless in a decade or two. So
and why wouldn't you want a diversification in your investments anyways? Even just forget all the doom and gloom and the possible downside to the future, but just look at it from an investment standpoint. Like, you want a diverse portfolio in the first place,
Absolutely.
And I mean, trying to buy a house or saving for retirement, I mean, any of these things that, millennials are going to be struggling with, not to mention, Gen Z, forget Gen Alpha, like that poor generation, and anyone that comes after, like it just makes sense. And one thing that I kind of want to end on here is that I find it interesting that people are still trying to hold on to the fiat currency because it's comfortable.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah, it's what we know.
Yes.
But it's like holding on to the Titanic. It's just,
all you need is just 0.1 Bitcoin, guys, and you will be set in the future. I guarantee you. You don't even need to buy a whole Bitcoin, because it is scarce. It's capped at 21 million Bitcoin. So as this continues to grow, as governments continue to stockpile, it's only going to increase in value. It really is a no-brainer. But again, you didn't get that from me.
Right. Yeah. None of this is financial advice. This just a couple of friends just bullshitting.
Exactly.
So, one thing I we'll wrap up here, so I don't keep you too long. But one thing that I thought was really interesting, and it was just a quick little line out of your book that I just loved, and it says, "You are your best investment."
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
And why did you put that in the book?
Because regardless of what happens to the financial system, regardless if you don't have any Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, you need to be investing in yourself now. You need to be learning different skills, different trades to make yourself valuable. We've been put into a situation, myself included. I don't know how old you are, Jacob, but I'm in my early 40s, and I was never
33 almost.
Okay. So I have a couple of years on you, but I was never somebody who had to learn a lot of these skills. It wasn't something that was required of me to exist. But again, if there is some type of dollar crash, if there is some type of cyber attack, if the dollar is gone, your life is not going to be as comfortable as it once was. You're going to need to know how to do things like grow your own food, raise your own food. But not only that, you're going to need to have skills to trade, to barter with others. And I know this seems almost kind of primitive or elementary to even say this, but I don't think there's a lot of people that realize that once the dollar is gone, your whole paradigm of existence is going to be completely foreign to you. We've been kind of lucky in some ways to be in this fiat paradigm because it has made life so easy in many ways. It has made it difficult, but it also has made it easy. So yeah, I do believe that's one of the most important things you could do. You know your neighbors, meet the people growing your food, invest in yourself, learn different languages, learn how to, distinguish what propaganda is. I mean, even that alone is so important. And that's just one part of the small piece of the puzzle. Right. So yeah, definitely important to invest in yourself. And I go over the many ways you could do that in the book as well.
Right. So go ahead and let people know where they can find you. Anything you have coming up.
Sure.
Any cool projects or whatever.
Well, yeah, the book that we've been talking about is at my website, jasonbassler.com, 3 ways to prepare for CBDCs. On that same website, you could actually get our newest book that actually just came out earlier this year, which is Little Free Thinkers Know Your Rights. And that is a book that myself and Matt Agris just put out. And basically is a children's book teaching kids all about their rights. The main character in the book is a whistleblowing officer, a real officer, Officer Jody, who got fired from her department for blowing the whistle. And it goes over, a bunch of different things, due process, First Amendment, free speech, a bunch of different stuff. So it's a great foundation for kids. If you want to get them a liberty-based gift for family and friends, I'd highly recommend it. Otherwise, yeah, check out our podcast. I'd love to have you on sometime soon, Jacob.
Anytime.
Yeah, man, that'd be great. If you go to freethoughtproject.com, at the top there, there's awesome. Yeah, there's the Know Your Rights book. At the top of the Free Your Thought Project, there is our podcast tab. Otherwise, you can find it at Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We've had a lot of great guests over the years: Dr. Ron Paul, Robert Malone, Peter Schiff, Ben Swan. I mean, a lot of excellent people, excellent guests. So definitely check that out, guys. Otherwise, you could find me at Jason Bassler, Twitter. I think it's Jason Bassler 1 actually, and Jason.e.bassler on Instagram. And those are kind of my 2 bigger accounts that I mostly post on. So not to overwhelm your audience with too much there, but just a few plugs and where you can find me.
Yeah, so everything will be in the episode description. So make sure and check it out. Even though we did talk about, the 3 different ways to prepare for CBDCs, there's so much in the book that we didn't get to. Yes. And so it really is worth the money. Like Jason said earlier, he will be having a Christmas sale. So, buy it full price. You won't regret it. I highly recommend it do not regret spending full price for it, but go ahead and wait, get, save a few bucks, and, the few bucks that you saved, put that into Bitcoin or preferably Monero. Not financial advice, but something you can just do. There's just so much more. It's a quick read. It really is great. And like Jason said before at the start of this, it's really for people who are not aware. Although, even though I'm aware of a lot more of this, there were a few things that I actually learned as far as just ideas. It got the gears turning. So it's not useless for people who are aware of this stuff. So either way, it's definitely something I would recommend just having on your bookshelf. Something, I liked it as somebody who is aware of this stuff. It gave me a way to summarize some of this for speaking to other people about this. So
cool. Yeah.
Right. And I absolutely loved it. So I can't praise it enough. Make sure and check Jason out. All of the stuff in the episode description. Otherwise, make sure to hit that like, the subscribe, all of those things that we have to say. Our big tech overlords want to make sure that we don't grow. So if you found this valuable, go ahead and share it with somebody. Make sure that you can actually still see us. Go to risetoliberty.com/links. That will pull up every platform that we're on, everywhere you can find us. I also will be having some sales coming up on some merch. It's going to be a pretty good deal, so keep an eye out for that. And otherwise, one last question just before we get out of here. I think I asked you last time, but I'd be kind of curious to see what you have to say now. Why does liberty matter in the first place?
Because nobody has the right to tell you what the fuck to do as long as you're not hurting somebody else or their property.
I love it.
Is that concise enough?
Yes.
I'm sure we could riff on that for another 5 minutes. But
Yeah.
And I also want our future generations to grow up in a free world. I think that's absolutely important. And we're less and less becoming a part of a free world. So it's absolutely crucial that we stand up and speak out now.
Right. Hey, I think that's a perfect answer. Thank you once again for tuning in. Jason, hang out for just a second in the background and we'll wrap this up. Everyone else, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, stay free, my friends.